Yam Shaiva Samupasate Shiva iti Brahmeti Vedantino Bauddha Buddha iti Pramana Padavaha Karteti Nayyayigaha Arhan Nityatha Jaina Shasanarataha Karmeti Mimamsagaha Soyam Vo Vidadhatu Vanchita Phalam Trahilokyanato Harihi Soyam Vo Vidadhatu Vanchita Phalam Trahilokyanato Harihi Harihi Om Jai Guru. Dear and blessed sons and daughters of India, there were occasions in the past also when I was requested or called upon to face a group of people like you to talk to them something about management, administration, the country's lost values and so many other allied subjects. Sriman Ayyappan is known to me for some time now, and in one way or the other he has been keeping in touch with us, the ashram's activities also. In addition to that, he is also the director of the Kerala chapter of Foundation for Restoration of National Values, an all-India organization which is operating from New Delhi. So when he proposed that I should come to his place of work and address the members of the staff, I had no option at all but simply to concede and heed what he said. When I have come here and I am looking at all of you, I feel very happy. Very happy. I don't know whether you are happy seeing me, but I am very, very happy. Whenever I see people, I instantly develop a sense of oneness and identity with them. And with that spirit and in that kind of a mood, whatever I feel like talking, I talk. There should always be a desirable subject, a caption, for delivering any kind of an address or exhorting any set of people. You are all people given to the profession of management, but I am wondering whether all of you know sufficiently well about what exactly is the managing factor and what is to be managed also. Any subject is subject to a lot of exposure, analysis, probing, inquiry, investigation, evaluation and all that. Then only you will be able to develop the right insight into whatever you propose to do, discover or understand. So the subject today is spirituality, its relevance in management today. I don't know whether you have thought about the subject well. I would like you to think about it. Management today is already known to you. All of you are managers in one form or the other, and you have your own respective tasks to manage. So everybody knows about the art and the process of management to some extent. But I would like you to think about it in a deeper manner. We want to understand whether there is anything called spirituality at all. And if so, if that spirituality is in any way related to the task, the endeavor called management. This is what we have to understand. By the time I end up my talk, I am sure that all of you will have to give me a stamp of approval. Swamiji, spirituality is there and it is most and constantly relevant to the present day management. If I am able to make you say so, I will have gone from this place with a sense of fulfillment, not otherwise. Management is actually the art and process of managing. But what exactly do we have to manage if you ask me? You have to manage two important factors or constituents, the mind and the intelligence. A factor that perhaps many of you are not aware of. Whenever you have a team of people along with you, when you have to manage them, are you trying to muscularly manage their muscular body? Or do you have to manage their mind and intelligence? What are these mind and intelligence? They are the spiritual constituents of the human personality. Mark my words. Every one of us has got a twofold personality. One part of the personality is called body, which is consisting of matter and energy alone. neither matter nor energy is sentient. They have no power of thinking, understanding, knowing, sensing, memorizing, and whatnot. But we are a personality in which we are thinking, understanding, sensing, remembering, evolving, doubting, arriving at clarity, and whatnot. All these are conscious factors and conscious processes. So far as the body is concerned, it is absolutely inert, consisting of matter and energy alone. Am I clear? Do you agree? Now, our body is at best an instrument, a kind of a matter-energy aggregate. This body has to be employed, every part of the body and the body as a whole has to be employed by some conscious factors. These are the mind and the intelligence. I said that we have got a twofold personality. There are two counterparts. One is the external gross counterpart called the body. Another is the inner personality, which is very subtle because it is inside the body. It consists of primarily only two factors, the thinking and the emotional mind, the rational and inquiring intelligence. If I lift my hands or raise my fingers, it is at the instance of the mind within. Am I clear or not? Huh? So the entire body is inert. Suppose you are sleeping, then sleep. Somebody comes near you, gently opens the eyelids and shows a beautiful flower. After some time, take away the flower, close your eyelids. Next, asked, I showed a flower before you. Did you see? What will be your answer? I did not see. Why? The flower was shown before the eyes, but you were not able to see it because mind had not employed the eye to see. Another person opened the eyelids and showed the flower before you. You have not opened your eyelids. So every activity of the body will have to be initiated by the mind, designed by the mind, and implemented by the mind. I would like every one of you to understand this process. All activities or interactions are initiated by the mind. And while the activity and interaction are on, they are resting upon the mind, sustained by the mind. And when the activity is over, it is concluded in the mind to be remaining there as a memory. Am I right or not? Am I clear? All of you are seated before me. Before you came and sat here, a lecture was announced, a Swamiji was coming, an invitation was issued. All these were known by your ears or by your eyes or by the mind. And the mind decided we should go and sit there before time. So the decision was the mind. Implementation also is by the mind. After about an hour, all of us will have dispersed from here. But the event continues to remain in your mind as a memory. That is why I said all activities and interactions are initiated by the mind. They are resting upon and sustained by the mind, and they are also concluded in the mind. So whether you are managers or not, you tell me, management as a task, management as a pursuit, management as an endeavor. Where is it taking place? Primarily you have to design it, understand it in your mind, and employ the body for whatever purposes are there. In as much as the mind and intelligence are not material and energial, if they are not material, if they are not energial, they are not part of the body also. You tell me yourself, what are these mind and intelligence? Something different from material and energial that we call spiritual. Let us be understanding the word spiritual and spirituality. Spiritual refers to that constituent or those constituents within the body which are not material or energial in character. So will you agree with me when I say your mind is a spiritual constituent, your intelligence is another? Will you agree or not? If you say no, then I will ask you, show me one piece of matter or one force called energy which is capable of thinking, feeling, sensing and understanding. So all of you are primarily a spiritual person or a material and bodily person. Are you spiritual or not? This is my question. We are all spiritual. Everyone is spiritual. Simply because we have got two spiritual constituents in our personality called the mind and the intelligence. The success in any endeavor whatsoever, not to speak of management, consists in bringing about a close integration between the emotional mind and the rational intelligence. When you think of management in this manner, I believe the entire management can be briefly put is, it is the art and process of leading one's own mind and the minds and intelligences of the others. Am I clear? You have to lead your own mind and your own intelligence. You have to lead the mind and the intelligence of the others also. When you are talking to somebody, it is not the ears alone that are hearing. There is a mind, an emotional mind in the personality. That person should like the manner in which you have addressed him. He must have a sense of appeal and endearment for you. He must feel like obliging you or fulfilling what you have said. So we are always interacting with the minds and intellects of the others. And these are spiritual constituents. Being spiritual constituents, you can understand them only in your own personality. You cannot step inside the body of another and get to feel the mind of a person. You have to understand what exactly is the mind and what is intelligence, what is the relationship between the two, in what way they differ from each other, if at all. So primarily and ultimately, it is a question of knowing your mind, its potential, magnitude and possibilities. Potential, magnitude and possibilities. Knowing also what is within the range of the intelligence. So far as the mind is concerned, I would like to tell you that mind is a spiritual constituent, I said. The only agency or tool that can have any kind of an influence on the human mind is the intelligence and intelligence alone. Nothing else. Nothing else. You cannot approach the mind by a material or a physical process. Suppose you apply a balm on your body, it is not going to touch the mind. The food that you eat is going into the stomach. It is being assimilated by the food system, by the alimentary canal, and it is converted into blood. So what is it that is going to touch the mind, touch the intelligence, is something very important. All of you have to seriously think about it. In management as a function, there are two important facets. One is that managing material, machinery, and so many other physical and mechanical and energial processes. All these are given to you in the form of academic and professional institutes of engineering and other places. I don't speak anything at all. I know practically nothing. Maybe I will have to seek knowledge from you. So that object part of the whole management, I never speak about. I only have to speak about the subject part of the management, which is completely focused on your mind, your intelligence, and the minds and intelligence of others. That part alone I have to say. So to be an efficient manager, you will have to understand what is your mind and what is your intellect. Have you probed into the mind? You have made use of the mind. When you were in the educational centers, you applied your intelligence. You learned quite a number of subjects. And these subjects were actually objects, not subjects. They were objects. And then you were applying and applying. But have you taken any time in your life to close your eyes and sit and understand what is my mind and what potential and magnitude my mind has, and what is the difference between the mind and the intelligence? In what way can the intelligence help me in the matter of harnessing or reforming, refining or elevating and expanding my mind? Have you ever thought about it? I am sure that most of you will not have thought about it. That is why we are not becoming greater and better managers. The mind has got infinite potential. The intelligence has got still more, still more. Can you imagine? The people who were sitting on the land, they engineered a journey of 1 or 2 people to the moon. They hadn't gone to the moon. They landed people safely there and brought them back also. What do you find there? It is the majesty of the intelligence, the potential of human intelligence. Where there the intelligence is applied on external matters, external purposes, object purposes. The same intelligence can be applied to handle the problems, the vicissitudes, the confrontations, the discomfiture, the conflicts and the imbalances of your own mind. There is nothing in the way of a mental adversity or a calamity which a knowing intelligence will not be able to deal with and resolve. If we cannot resolve some problems, we can certainly dissolve them in their own source of origin. Did you hear me well? If you cannot resolve some problems, we can at least dissolve them in their own source of origin. So much of capacity our intelligence has. So let us understand it very clearly and then carry on. Most of us are suffering from fear, doubt, apprehension. We have a lot of reluctance. All these are negative traits, psychological traits which are negative in character. Unless we are able to detect them and remove them, you are never going to have a comprehensive or an inclusive mind. I would like every manager to have an assimilative mind, a resilient mind, a persevering mind, a comprehensive mind. All these are words which are qualifying the mind of man and the mind alone of man. When I say flexibility, you should not have rigidity. You must have assimilativeness. What is meant by assimilativeness? Whatever inputs or impacts you get, either from persons or from circumstances or from events or from environments, in the mind level, the mind should be able to overwhelm and dissolve everything. No object from the outside world will ever enter into the mind. It's only an imprint of the object which the mind creates. Suppose somebody speaks to you a harsh word. Who has spoken to the harsh word? Somebody else. Have you spoken? No. Then why are you suffering? Somebody has spoken a harsh word. Then who is the wrongdoer here? You or he? Huh? He. And why are you grieving for it? Let him grieve for the harsh word he has spoken, for the wrong charges he has imputed. Why are you saying, oh, he has said this, he has it. Have you said it? No. Then why are you worried? So our mind does not seem to be having the right sense. It is not able to assimilate many things. Anything that comes from the world, any kind of an input or an impact, tell me, I have got a mind which will assimilate. What do you mean by assimilation? When the food is assimilated, it is converted into blood and energy. In the same manner, any impact or any input from the world, maybe from my colleagues, from my assistants, or the people around, either from the house, domestic or residential members, or professional colleagues, or maybe from the society, any input coming from matter, energy, event. After all, our interactions are with persons, places, and events. These are the only type of interactions we have. Persons, places, and events. Whatever impact or inputs come from them, my mind has got the capacity to receive, assimilate, and convert it into a positive and enduring enrichment. Am I clear? Am I clear? Don't underestimate your mind. Understand that it is your mind that is going to be very important. Our managers and the managing community are a substantial lot, a great deal of people. I have a lot of appreciation for them. I was going to address a special memorial meeting in Delhi last year. So I immediately wanted to have some figures. I told my disciple, who is a Supreme Court advocate, can you get me the figures of this year's budget? So immediately they gave me. I wanted to know what is the tax level so far as the corporations are concerned. You know, the figure I got was 56% of the tax revenue of our country is contributed by corporations industry. I don't know whether you yourself know it. 56% of the tax revenue is corporate tax. What does it mean? All these companies are paying tax from the money that they have been able to generate, and all of you managers have been toiling hard, sweating hard, persevering loyally, very devotedly. That is why this money has come. So the managing community is a very important community. None of you should think of you as an employee alone. It is a crime to think that I am an employee. You are employed in an outfit, in a factory, or in an office, I agree. The productivity in that place, it is not consumed by either the investor or by the employees. The productivity goes to the society, of which you and your family are members. Am I clear or not? Now, your productivity is not for the employer, nor is it for the employee. It goes directly to the society, and it is to ameliorate or improve the quality of life in the country, in the world. So any man who works anywhere, understand that he is contributing to the nation's productivity, and you have no ground at all. Your sentiments apart, your emotions apart, your salary considerations apart, understand that you are first and last a citizen of the country, and you have a duty to the nation. Nobody can afford to be lazy. Nobody can afford to be negligent. Nobody can afford to be inattentive. None can afford to be insincere. Everybody has to be wholesome. Understand that we have got a brain, a head above the eyebrows. That head should rule the whole part of the body. Whether it is your hands, feet, nose, eyes or whatnot, everything should be steered, guided by the intelligence. So let us understand there is a fundamental duty in the Constitution where you are asked to uphold the nation's needs as well as ideals and values. It is all right that you work in HLL or any other organization. I don't mind. The organization itself owes itself to the society because its products, goods or services are availed of by the society. If the society is adversely hit, the industry cannot survive. The industry must have manpower on the one hand and the society which will avail of the goods and services. So the indebtedness to the society is something very important. Why I say this? Every manager should understand this societal dimension of his profession and pursuit. And I am almost sure that many of you are not reflecting this, radiating this. When I say 56% of the tax revenue is generated by the industry, I was proposing all the industries in India should come up and join together and tell the government, 56% of the money that you are spending that is generated by us, give us a role to discuss and also verify whether it is rightly spent or not. We speak of participation by employees in management, participation by taxpayers in the tax expenditure, the method, that is also a crying need of the country. You know, my soul will never rest in peace unless the taxpayers of India are coming to a taxpayer awareness, as a result of which every one of us will be motivated and compelled to ask the government, explain to us how you have spent our taxes, the money that we have paid. We often hear 1,000 crores of rupees are allotted for a particular job. By the time it reaches the actual targeted point, it becomes 600 crores. What about the 400 crores? Do they not owe an explanation to the taxpayer? When are we going to have the taxpayer awareness? That issue be there. The manager awareness we are discussing now. As a manager, you are not merely an employee. You are an employee, that's all. All your productivity and services, they directly go to enrich, empower, elevate and enlarge the society at large. That you cannot ignore. When you start feeling in this manner, you will find the constrictions of the mind. The constrictions of the mind, they start giving way. And there is an irresistible expansion gracing you. An irresistible expansion. Whenever you walk, whenever you do anything, you will not be doing with a mustard mind. You will have an oceanal or a sea-like mind. The right type of mind is the spatial mind. Generally we have mind of a well dimension, W-E-L-L. Some people have something like a tank dimension. Others have a lake dimension. I don't think many have lake dimension. Then maybe some people have got a river dimension. But the right dimension will be, you must have a dimension like that of the sea. Our body completes its growth at the age of 21 when you become an adult. And from the next moment onwards, the body is degenerating. It is declining. There is no further growth at all. When you become an adult, if the body has completed its growth, it has started declining. I am asking you a very pertinent question. What in you is going to enlarge, expand, grow further and further? The answer is your mind. The mind's growth is not vertical, it is horizontal. It has to become more and more large, more and more expansive, more and more flexible, more and more enriched every time. Every day of your activity should enrich you, should empower you, should give you greater and greater insight, maturity, flexibility, the power of assimilation. Whatever the other people say, they are difficult, they say it's difficult, I shall do it. That should be your attitude. No, I cannot do. These words should never come from a human mouth, from a manager's mouth. What is there not possible for us? Everything is possible, provided we can try patiently, prudently, judiciously and diligently. Then everything is possible. Ayameva agamityasmin sankoche vilayam gate samasta bhuvanavyapi vistara upajayate. This is a spiritual verse. Vasishtha was telling Sri Rama when he was 16 years old. My dear Rama, you have a constriction in you. Ayameva agamityasmin. I am just this limited body which has completed its growth and which is aging every day. So I am an aging person, useless person, already superannuated my body is. This is the type of feeling that you have. Unless you are able to overcome this constriction, dissolve it and develop an expansion. Ayameva ahamityasmin sankoche vilayam gade. This kind of a constriction, when it attains dissolution, samasta bhuvanavyapi vistara upajayade. Suddenly there will emerge, there will dawn in your within, in your mind, an expansion, a universal expansion. As a manager, have this comprehensiveness. Be inclusive in your thought process, in your reaction process, in your assessment process. We have to be inclusive. Never think of you as an individual. So many of you, officers or others of this organization are before me. Everyone is mutual and complementary to the other. No one is singled out here. There must be a mutuality. There must be a collectivity. This mutuality and collectivity are two important words which every manager will have to think. Are you able to instill in your colleagues a definite and a constant abiding note of mutuality and collectivity? Suppose a person takes leave. I want leave, so I go. Arey, you are leaving what? You are saying leaving, but you are leaving what? One important sector of the whole corporate activity you are leaving. So when you are not there to do the job, somebody else will have to do. So your taking leave cannot be purely optional. It has to be a collective process. Don't come to decide that I will leave today. What will happen to that? We must have an all-inclusive thought process. That is what is required. When the mind expands, you will find we have a mustard mind. Suppose in place of the mustard mind, you have a mountainous mind, you tell me, which is better to live and move with. Would you like to have a small mind like the small body and carry on your work? Or would you like to have an air-like or a space-like mind? Is there any answer from you? Would you like to have a constricted mind? Or would you like to have an expansive mind? Say that. This expansion can be cultivated. Our life is meant for that. Every one of us is born to a set of parents. You may have some brothers and sisters. So being born in a family, you understand what is your family. From there you grow in your mind. All families are like mine. So that universal family expansion should be there. Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam we call it. Your family should be the whole earth and the whole world. Bodily you are a member of the family. Mentally you have to be a member of the whole universe. Is it possible or not? Am I talking to you something utopia? Is that? Is it possible or not? Possible it is. Probable I don't know. Every time you will find the mind senses the problem. When the mind senses the problem, right beneath that sensing, you have the solution to the problem also. Newton saw an apple fall. So many people before Newton also saw the apple fall. But Newton started thinking, why did it fall and why did it not flee? Every apple seems to be falling perpendicularly down to the earth. And at the earth point, it stops. So every apple falls directly below. What is the reason? It is standing there and it is falling here. So there must be a relationship between the two. He started thinking and thinking. And if my information is correct, for 1 year he thought, deliberated, inquired, investigated, probed into, explored into, and found it is the gravitational pull of the earth. What was the problem here? Apple falling. Why did it fall? That phenomenon stirred up his imagination and he wanted to know why. So it remained a problem. For 1 year in his mind. At the end of it, he came up with a solution, the gravity of the earth. Who sensed the problem? His eyes or the mind? And who found the solution? Tenaciously, perseveringly, zealously, dedicatedly, with a lot of attention and identity. That alone makes a difference. Let us be very, very clear about it. Every time our intelligence must be able to think and deliberate in a manner that the mind is enriched. Now, our life is an interactional life. Right from the moment you wake up in the morning, you open your eyes. The moment you open your eyes, the interactions start. First of all, maybe you see the roof. and thereafter you see the wall, then you are caught, you go to the bathroom, interactions start. This is what is happening. In these interactions, you have to interact with persons, places and events, I said. The places and events are apparently inert things. But when it becomes interacting with persons, that interpersonal relationship is the most complex and most challenging. As a manager, your efficiency, after all, a good manager only manages. He does not do anything himself. His success lies in managing the people around. So you have to motivate them, explain matters to them so that you will be able to evoke in their mind emotional persuasions. Mark my words. You will equally be able to evoke in their intelligence a rational compulsion. When you are able to evoke emotional persuasion and rational compulsion, the job is done. You can go away anywhere you want. So you have to be articulate. Make the other party feel for you, feel for what you say, and constantly try to generate mutuality and collectivity. All these qualities which I are discussing are spiritual in nature because they relate to the human mind and human intelligence. So in all our interactions, I know that many of you are engineers, professional people, administrative people, accounts, finance and all that. You have enough knowledge. But when it comes to interpersonal behavior, it becomes a problem. So the manager is tested primarily in his interpersonal relationship. There, the point which I have raised earlier, you have to lead your own mind and your own intelligence, and you have equally to lead others' mind and others' intelligence. Whether it is your or others, mind and intelligence are the same. So it becomes dealing with the mind and the intelligence. I would like to tell you here, spirituality comes in the most pronounced and a striking manner. Most pronounced and in a striking manner. We have got a gospel called Bhagavad Gita. Many people think that it is something like a mythology. I would like to tell you it is not. It is an administrative gospel in the form of a dialogue that transpired between Krishna, an administrator, and Arjuna, another administrator. And what was the occasion? The most hazardous task of administration. What is the most hazardous task of administration? Fighting an issue, physically. 4.5 million warriors had assembled in Kurukshetra. Just before, after the war cries had been raised and the discharge of arrows alone was to take place, Arjuna wanted to examine the army. And mind you, earlier 13 years, long years, Arjuna was preparing for this war. It was supposed to be a gear, something very important he wanted to fight and get further laurels for him. When he came to the battlefield and examined, suddenly Arjuna crumbled. His body started shivering, mouth went dry, Gandiva slipped from his hand, his mind was whirling, the intelligence said, it's a colossal sin, don't fight. So he left his bow and arrow, unable to stand, sat on the chariot. You tell me, was it not for anybody who was near to deal with the mind? This is what I am saying, dealing with the mind and intelligence of a person. Krishna was there by the side. Arjuna said, I am moved by sympathy. I have a sympathy for all these people. I am not able to fight at all. And all this total crumbling of the personality. Krishna started talking to him. You know, hardly he spoke about 32 or 64 letters. The crying Arjuna stopped crying. Are you with me when I talk this? Huh? See, crying and weeping Arjuna, when Krishna said, Ashocyan anvashochastvam, why are you grieving? You are grieving over Bhishma and Drona, who are themselves not grieving. Why are you grieving? How can I fight these people, you say, but they don't have any doubt. Why is it that you have a doubt? I find an inconsistency in what you do. So it was the emotional mind that crumbled. Krishna was trying to trigger, stimulate and activate the rational intelligence by making some rational questions to him. Suddenly the mind level was left over and Arjuna rose to the level of the intelligence. A beautiful dialogue took place. Arjuna participated in it and every question was answered, discussed, and finally the same Arjuna, after 2 hours of dialogue, got up, took the bow and arrow, and then he said, not one Mahabharata war, a dozen if necessary, this Arjuna shall fight. If it is not an expert management of the mind and intelligence of Arjuna, you tell me, what was it? Can you imagine a graver consternation, a greater discomfiture? a more challenging confrontation or assault. In that situation, Krishna was able to revive Arjuna's spirits, stimulate him, encourage him. This is how you deal with the mind. You know, we are a people who always have to deal with the minds and intellects of the others. So many people ask us so many questions. Many express a lot of grief, disappointment, dismay, and so many other things. We have to patiently hear them, treat them, talk to them, and revive them. So in a way, we are ascetic people. We are experts in human management. Do you believe what I say? We are experts. That is why we alone are there to discuss Gita. None of you reads it because you don't know that it's a management task. We have another example. The young Sri Rama, 16 years old. He undertook a pilgrimage in our country at the age of 16 after completing his archery. After coming back, he was exposed to the actual brass tacks in the whole of the subcontinent. He became so disappointed that he was not available for anybody in the palace. He stopped taking bath, even eating food properly. Vasishtha, coming to know, called him and said, "What is your trouble?" Rama started conveying all his problems. And Vasishtha and Rama discussed for 18 days from morning to evening. And the whole problem of Sri Rama was so tackled. Finally he said, "You are young, you have to sit on the throne and administer the kingdom. Be a Mahakarta and a Mahabhokta." I would like you to remember these two words. Mahakarta, Mahabhokta. Be a magnificent performer. Be a magnificent enjoyer. Be a magnificent sufferer. This is what you get from spirituality. Spiritual wisdom, properly applied, discusses before you the potentials and the possibilities of the human mind and intelligence. The constricted mind dissolves, all the constrictions dissolve, and you have a mind of infinite expansion. Always you will find, I am anchored on the infinite. Bodily, I am resting on the ground, but mentally and inwardly, I am anchored in the imperishable, the center of the whole universe. That kind of a feeling comes to you. Mahakarta. Whatever another man is not able to do, you say, I shall do. I have got the inspiration. I have got the drive to do it. That is the way you will talk. Any input is assimilated. After all, the mind has to assimilate only mind's own creations. You tell me a wrong word, I feel unhappy. The unhappiness is my mind's creation. Cannot my mind dissolve its own products? I am not going to dissolve your ear or your words. It is only my mind's impact. Am I clear? When we say difficulty, what is the difficulty? Difficulty is what you feel in your mind. That difficulty will pass off. And you will find it is ease and facility. That is what you will think. So these instances, they are epic instances provided before you. The manner in which Sri Krishna accepted the challenge and completely transformed Arjuna only by the power of what? The power, the majesty of the mind, the splendor of the intelligence. Nothing else was there. He was speaking to him about the mind's potential, intelligence's efficiency and the like. This is what happened. So what I would like you to understand is spirituality is actually nothing other than the science, the art and the process of management. When you understand true spirituality, you will find you will be able to lead your mind and your intelligence and also lead the mind and the intelligence of others. And what is the process or the method? Spirituality always addresses the intelligence, activates it, and then enlightens it. Enlightenment is the greatest persuasion and compulsion before a human being. Do you agree or not? Enlightenment. Krishna enlightened Arjuna. Vasishtha enlightened the Prince Rama. And both of them were able to do everything well. When you understand your mind's potential, here is a verse I would like to sing and then stop. Akashavalle bhaviduragoham adityavat bhasya vilakshanoham ambho aharyavad nitya vinishchaloham ambodhivad paravivarjitoham. This is where you reach. Akashavad lepaviduragoham. My mind is very, very permeating. It is very vast and very expansive. It resembles the sky. The sky is inert, but I have got a sentient sky in my mind. Akashavadu, like the space. Lepaviduragoham. It cannot be tainted. It cannot have any blemish. Nothing can cause a scar on the mind. There may be scar in the brain, physical brain, but not in the mind. Like a mountain, I am unshakable, unshakable. Like the sun, I am self-luminous. And like the sea, I am boundless. This kind of a feeling you will have. When you have such a feeling, what happens? I think every problem gets dissolved. We are manufacturing too much of a problem of everything. This is the way you will be able to lead. 3 important words I would like to present before you. When we were discussing about values, I always said, any value worthy of itself is always relating to the human mind and intelligence. That is why our most ancient values are even now current. Because in the whole context of civilization, the length of time we have lived, I don't think our mind has changed or intelligence has changed. Even the biochemistry of the body has not changed. We have the same 2 eyes, 2 hands, 1 nose with 2 holes, 1 tongue, etc. So all the values are relating to the mind and intelligence, therefore they are eternal. That is why we want a restoration of national values here. We don't have to discover any value at all. Nobody can give us any value which is not already tested and tried by us. We have time-tested values. And we know what is the fundamental and what is the ultimate. So I always used to say this. So there is something called characteral elegance. You must be elegant in your character. And you must have behavioral majesty. A majestic behavior. Don't be cheap, don't be low, don't be flimsy. Carry a density, carry a composure, carry a magnificence in you. And finally, interactional excellence. Characteral elegance, behavioral majesty, and interactional excellence. When Kaikeyi told Sri Rama, I want you to go to the forest for 14 years. Rama said, my dear stepmother, only this much. Before the sun sets, I will have left Ayodhya. All the people opposed Sri Rama. All the people opposed. Every opposition made his will and fervor greater and greater. And he left. When I went to America, a set of children were before me. I asked them. When Kaikeyi said, Rama said, I will go. My dear children, what will you say? All of them said, I will not, I will not. But there was a boy to get up and say, I will go, Swamiji, he said. The same thing happened in Kerala also. Now suppose I ask this question before you, I don't know. What will you say when Kaikeyi asks you to go? See, where from did Rama muster this resolve? He did not have a different mind. The same mind which you and I have, he also had. So don't set limits to your mind. Sky is the limit. Sky is the limit for excellence. Never stop anywhere. It is a resolve that he was able to generate culture in his own mind. This is what I saw, characteral elegance, behavioral majesty. He got angry. So I also counter-angry I became. So he is the first criminal, you are the second criminal. That's all the difference. Finding fault with him, you did the same fault. Who is to be punished more, you tell me? Is there any meaning in it? He said some wrong words. So I spoke to him wrong squared words. Don't say like that. Let us be an adult. Let us respond to situations better. And it is possible. So characteral elegance, behavioral majesty, and interactional excellence are the 3 important qualifications or characteristics I would like you to have to become a very efficient manager. Every time elevate yourself, enrich yourself, empower yourself, enlarge yourself, enlighten yourself, and reach the state of fulfillment as a manager. I think I have stopped my proposition. In conclusion, I would like to tell you that management is a task revolving upon the mind and intelligence of the manager, and it consists in leading his own mind and intelligence and also the mind and intelligence of the others. You have to probe into the mind, understand its potential and possibility, the measure and magnitude of the mind, equally the intelligence. And it's a full subject by itself, generally reserved for people like us. But I would like it to be availed of and usurped by all of you. Hari Om. Jai Guru.